जय गजानन गणेशाय नमस्तुभ्यं हेरम्बाय एकदन्तिने स्वानन्दवासिने तुभ्यं ब्रह्मणस्पतये नमः. With humble pranams to all Paramacharyas, Acharyas and Gurus, let us continue our discussion with Yoga Sara. Here, Brahma is answering to Bhrigumuni and others regarding the nature of the people during the various yugas or time periods. How was their behavior? What was the attitude towards spirituality? What were their how were they carrying on the Vedic rites or their dharma based on Vedas? This was in answer to Skanda's question to Shiva, and Shiva was narrating what he had heard from Brahma in answer to Bhrigu's questions. So here we continue with that discussion where we come across yugas get divided into smaller cycles of Chaturyugas, where we have Kruta Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga. Then once again Kruta Yuga. So each of 12,000 years. Within the Treta Yuga, within the Dwapara Yuga, within the Kali Yuga. So in each of these, because the humanity in general are in varying stages of development, both emotionally, mentally and spiritually. Physically, they may all be appearing the same, but the emotional maturity, the spiritual development are all in varying degrees. So, even in Kali Yuga, there will be certain people who are having the same maturity as in Kruta Yuga. But then that number is very few. It was stated as 1 in 10 crores of people. So they are very small, so the influence is limited. But when a larger group of people have that kind of mental capacity or that kind of spiritual development, we find that is where we can say that now it is Kruta Yuga. Now it's not necessarily only the number of years that have passed. Okay, so even though that time frame is approximately the period when the transformation happens. That is what has been observed, and accordingly they have been bifurcated into those time periods. So in Kruta Yuga, we have people who are 100% sattvic. That truth, the basic nature itself is truth. That was in the first part. Now we have only the remaining 3 yugas, Treta, Dwapara and Kali Yuga, with smaller cycles of 12,000 years for the rest of Brahma's life. Entire Kruta Yuga of the cosmic cycle is over. So we are in a time frame which is Treta, Dwapara and Kali Yuga, within which there are Chaturyugas, 71 to 72 Chaturyugas within a kalpa, a period of one kalpa, which is 100 years in the life of Brahma. So here we see that in Kruta Yuga we had people who are 100% truthful. That is over. Now in Treta Yuga we will have people only with 3/4 devotion. Then in Dwapara Yuga we'll have half the devotion, and in Kruta Yuga will have full devotion, Treta Yuga will have 3/4 devotion, Dwapara Yuga half the devotion, and in Kali Yuga it became one small part, and which will start steadily declining as the time progresses. So Anarya had been completely established in the word Anarya. That is Anarya, that is which is not Arya or which is not based on Vedic total Vedic rituals, is already established fully in Kali Yuga. The Pashanda Tantra and the faith in God came to be established from Dwapara Yuga. Tantrism and Mishra Marga gained prominence, and secondly, the Advaitas became a minority. The Advaita, Shuddha Advaita no more existed. Advaita also became a minority. The paths of perception, Vedanta replaced the Vaidikas in the Kali Yuga. Who are only completely following the Vedic rituals full day, 365 days of the year. That replaced. So that was replaced by Vedantic culture. So that means there would be periods when you're engaged in discourses, including doing rituals for others and things like that. So always other paths had minor presence in these lifestyles. It was a desire of the Supreme to establish the rule of truth on the earthly plane. But then, whatever the Paramatma wanted to establish, individual had their own free will. So when they individually they used all the the capabilities, skills, the sense organs, and the organs of action for utilizing the objects in the world, they would follow their own thing. So, and with the enchantment provided with all the varieties, naturally they establish their own individual paths. So, all doctrines, even though there were all these doctrines, 64 doctrines were there, but all don't exist in the same proportion or in the same intensity throughout. Some gets done away with, some are completely gone, extinguished, maybe because that particular gotra was not there. So then others gain more prominence. So we'll see how the passage of time, how these things started happening. So with the passage of time, when there was differing philosophies and there was divisions in the tantras, Danavas started practicing. Even in Kruta Yuga, they started practicing, and in the Treta also, as well as Dwapara also. During the Kali Dwapara transition period, it took shape in the form of the 18 Mahavidyas. The 18 Mahavidyas, as we know today, had taken place during the transition period from Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga. The impersonal Vedas came into existence from the outgoing breath of Brahma that we know. Prajapati was the creator of all the other branches of knowledge. From this, what he heard from Brahma, that was classified, segregated into various branches of knowledge, such as mathematics, grammar, astrology, science, and so on. Even the knowledge which was there came to be known according to who was master or expert in that particular domain, in that particular subject. So that name of the Rishi also came to be associated with that. Astrology by certain Rishis, Nyaya Shastra by certain person. So according to who propounded it and who propagated it, it came to be attached to that. So even in other fields of knowledge, there were several branches. Of course, there were Vedic mantras continued to exist on earth. It existed side by side, but then it was few and far in between. And kalpa after kalpa, they took a new form with the change in the mindset of the people. And according to how the people felt that they could utilize those mantras, it took new shape. That is why we have new and new stotras that keep coming according to the compositions that happen. And also, due to certain areas with passage of time, certain areas or certain activities were discontinued. Like for example, hunting for food does no longer exist. So some of those topics were completely lost. Then due to division among Vedas, Samhitas got divided into two. Those pertaining to the ancestral rites and those containing the mantras. So the Brahmins who were in the forest, they chanted the mantras, whereas the Samhitas became common to both, even those living in the cities as well as those practicing to the Vedikas. Samhitas on education consist of 9 branches. So this includes 2 Samhitas, one on the science of grammar. One Samhita contains 9 branches and the other Samhita has 7 branches which concentrated on Chanda Shastra, that is meter, the formation of phrases, sentences, proverb, and all that. So there were two samhitas. One is grammar, one is Chanda Shastra. Both samhitas are inclusive, while Vaidikas are independent. Then we have samhitas with 9 branches. Each is a separate branch of knowledge. Like Samhita Traya includes science of astrology of Manu, then Siddhanta Samhita, that is science of philosophy or compendium on philosophies, which was included in these 9 branches. Then we have this, in the 18 main branches are literally included in the Samhita. So all these 18 branches were put together in the Samhita. Its branches also included the astrological calculations. Both Samhitas include Kalpa Shastras of Manu. Kalpa Shastras are the reports or accounts of major events taking place during a particular Kalpa. So during the reign of a particular Manu is the one who is in charge for the entire time period. So in that period, whatever occurs is put together and compiled as Kalpashastras. Then this total science of rituals and karmas are known as Shrautas and Smartas. All are included in the Samhitas. So one who has learned all the 9 branches are called Kalpash. The person who studies all these 9 branches of the Samhitas is called Kalpashastra Visharada. Means you can say master of Kalpashastras. Due to the earlier divisions, it became 18. So totally there are 18 divisions. So we have the Upasana Kalpashastras Samhita consisting of 6 branches. Due to an earlier division, there was a Mimamsa Samhita. Mimamsa Samhita, which has again 2 branches, Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa had 12 branches, Uttara Mimamsa had 6 branches. So in all there are 18. So the 2 Samhitas include all the logic, science of logic of Manu, and this is considered as Purva Mimamsa. Then there are Samhitas with 2 branches of Paravidya. Paravidya are those, that is after we are dead. That is the passage or everything to do with beyond the ones after passing away. So there will be mantras relating to that and various procedures. The 18 Mahashakas slowly started disintegrating with passage of time. They became 14 Mahavidyas, which were considered philosophical in nature. So all these 14 Mahavidyas which came to be known, they led one step by step to a Kaivalya Pada. Kaivalya Pada is that of a stage where you feel liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So knowledge of all the branches have been explained by so many Munis and Rishis separately, individually, and whenever they faded away, these Munis once again take birth on earth. And the Munis, once the Munis and Rishis, they are dead. When they are dead, they don't go to just a Pitru Loka, they go to Tapo Loka. And then again they take birth on earth whenever there is a deterioration of the Shastras or these Vedic texts. So in the earlier Kalpas, in the initial stages, the Katha Shaka, that is the Katha Samhita, that is the stories or legends, some of them which they were not written down. Since they were not written down in the early stage, they were only spoken and it was transmitted or exchanged with others. So these kathas were visualized. Then subsequently, how do you retrieve these kathas? How do you know that these things occurred? So the yogis, through their meditative practices, when the inner eye was opened, they could visualize these from the Akashic records, which are from the original source, and then they brought it as kathas. So they published, wrote it down, and transmitted through oral teachings to the students. Then when that also vanished from the earth, some of these Katha Shastras have gone, like we don't have any records. When that also vanished, another Munishwar took birth, and he re-established that knowledge in that same name according to his vision. So this Katha Shakas, they were re-established by Munishwar. Even though his name might have been different, it is mentioned as Munishwar in all. Everywhere you find the word Munishwar. Although there may be different personalities who represent that, who have done this work, still it is put all together under the title Munishwar. So we have Rishis addressing O Munishwar and then explaining things. So that Munishwar who wrote it down, the student who wrote it down, is common. It did not have any particular name. So Manu Smritis speak of Swayambhu Manu, who narrated them, and then it was passed on to his students and with different names. They all created, so all these students of Manu, they created, when they passed on to others, they were collected or compendium. Those collections were called Smritis because they were from the recollections from memory. So some of the Smritis vanished, but later it came back in the same name on earth. When these people took rebirth, it comes back from their memory. The proponents of all this knowledge have been authorities on the subject. There are Munis who are knowers of Brahma. Some were residents of Tapo Loka. They took birth on earth in the beginning of Kruta Yuga under the orders of Brahma. And so according to the chronological period, based on their own respective fields of knowledge, they established what was lost and again restored it in Kruta Yuga, the next cycle of the Kruta Yuga. So normally this restoration takes place in Kruta Yuga, and then which was undone during the Treta and Dwapara, where it got diluted or disintegrated, it gets restored. Also, towards the end of Dwapara Yuga, during the transition period between Dwapara and Kali Yuga, then Vedic Prasthana Vidyas. These Vedic Prasthana Vidyas are established during this transition period of Dwapara to Kali Yuga, because it is during the Dwapara period that most of them gets destroyed by the Danavas. So all these Varnashrama arrangements have been predetermined, and accordingly it happens in a cyclical way, just as we see in the stock markets, in the share markets, that there is a cycle, there is a pattern that follows in the share market also. It doesn't that suddenly something happens overnight. It does that. Those are there. Those also are stray incidents. But then in a company that is doing fairly well over a stretched period of time, we can see a pattern in the rise and fall of the share prices, even in a regularly manufacturing existing company as well. So similarly, even in the lifestyle of human beings, a pattern has been noticed of the rise and fall in the mindset. And accordingly, these texts get lost, get restored. There are certain classes of people who will destroy it. This mostly happens during the Dwapara Yuga. Then during the transition period, then there is a transition period, and they get depleted then once all the evil doers are destroyed, when there is a total annihilation, either by some form of a calamity. There may be floods or fire, famine, drought, or any epidemics or pandemics. So when large number of the evil doers get destroyed, it's once again this Munishwaras come and restore it. So Vedas and all branches of knowledge that were established in the heavens, with passage of time, chronologically, they become rare on earth. In Kali Yuga, 3000 years later, arrangements for man's access to Vedas is being depleted. Totally, in Kali Yuga, it's totally depleted, it's vanished. Mostly, many of them are vanished. There have been instances of such depletion in other times also, but there never has been a complete destruction from the roots. There's always some pockets where some areas or some secret places where it is hidden, and when the time is ripe, this comes to the surface once again when there are people who will be able to communicate with that particular text, that particular scripture, or where the need of the hour, need of the people is that it should manifest. So at such times, these scriptures or these places, they get revealed by the divine himself itself. So the Sapta Rishis such as Kashyapa, those born from the Kumbha, among the Saptarishi, Kashyapa was one of the rishis. Mostly he had two wives, so one of them, through one of them, all the devas were born, the gods were born. Through the other, all the danavas were born. Then there was Kumbha, from whom, like Agastya, Vasishta, and Drona were those who were born from Kumbha. Then all the 8 great munis have expanded their gotras. They remind us of the turn of the Dwapara Yuga, and then during the transition period, the Daityas like Uchishta and others who had attained all kinds of boons through their penance, they had attained and they became very powerful. They caused a lot of havoc and destroyed a lot of Vedas. They destroyed the Varnashrama Dharma, means they used to destroy the places where the puja is performed, yajna yagas are performed. And as a result, the Rishis, Munis, and the masters, they could not perform those, they could not chant those mantras. Those yajna karmas were defiled. So then they would give up. When if there was too much disturbance, they would give up and then they would go to Tapo Loka. Then once all this dies down, after Brahma destroys this, again they come and restore it. So even Varnashrama Dharmas vanished and there prevailed only one caste everywhere. So this Pashanda Marga and all became one, and in that condition, Chakru, who was the best of gods, came for the destruction of these Danavas. So Chakru Munishwar revived the 3 Varnas and then also enlightened them with the samskaras of the human beings. What all are the conduct, what should be the conduct of a good human being? That was taught by Chakru. Then culture and other rulers, cultural and other rules were defined, were framed so as to guide the people. Vedic actions and knowledge was reinstated. Then we have Bharata. Bharata is the only place on earth where gods were established. In all other continents, Vedic dharmas are practiced, but restoration happens in Bharatavarsha. So in Bharatavarsha, Vyasa incarnated and made this land truly blessed. Whether it is for the establishment of Vedas or any other branches of knowledge of the Varnashrama Dharma, while they were being destroyed in other lands, in other places, they may get destroyed. But it is only in Bharatavarsha that they remain intact. They are restored and remain intact. With passage of time, towards the end of Kali Yuga, there will be a complete depletion even in Bharatavarsha, and then it will be completely vanished from the surface of the earth. This is towards the end of the 100 years of Brahma. So now he is in the 51st year, so there's a long time to go. So with that we conclude the first chapter of Yoga Sahara, the second part of Vinayaka Rahasyam. Jai Gajana.